So hello and welcome to Insight 2020. Over the course of 6 weeks, we're hosting a series of virtual events exploring some of the challenges facing decision makers in health and care in 2020 and beyond. And this session is all about our decision support network in the Midlands. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the role of evaluation within the network. The network has its own decision support centre operated by the strategy unit. And this centre, amongst other things, provides specialist advice, tools and guidance to the network. And this includes the bringing together of evaluation expertise from across the Midlands, as well as the provision of a dedicated evaluation guide to support systems to carry out this work themselves. And our evaluation lead for the Decision Support Centre, Paul Mason, will be taking us through this today. Before we begin though, if we can just start with a few house rules. Please keep your microphone during the presentation on mute. Please use the chat box function to ask any questions or raise technical issues. Sessions are recorded and links will be sent to registered participants afterwards. You can tweet about sessions using the hashtag Insight2020, and please do that. You can tweet us directly at strategy_units. And this will be an interactive session, so please do get involved in it. We'll be using Mentimeter. If you haven't used it before, it's dead easy. You just go to www.menti.com on the screen and you pop in that code. We'll bring this up again in later slides when we actually come to use it. And you'll get asked a bunch of questions and hopefully you can get involved in that way as well. So, the agenda for today, we're going to start off by thinking what makes an effective evaluation network, and then some work on what is evaluation and why is it important, and that'll be led by Paul. Then that'll be followed by an introduction to some evaluation work we at the DSC have been doing and an introduction to our evaluation guide that is now available. And then we're going to finish with some next steps on how we can make best use of all of the things discussed in this session. But before we get into it, can we please ask you to tell us who you are? We really want to know who we're talking to. So can you include in the chat box, just tell us who you are, where you work, and perhaps what you're hoping to get out of this session? Can I just give you a minute to do that, please? Lucy, I'll bring up the Menti code several times during the session, so I'll get it for you when we come to do the question. So anyone going to be brave enough to introduce themselves first in the chat box? Hi, Rachel. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Hayden. Hi, Sam. Hi, Andy. Hi, Lucy. Great, really good spread of people. We're all flying in now. Hi, Judy. Hi, Jane. Thanks very much. Hi, Jackie. Well, that's really good. We've got a really interesting spread of people from different places. Lots of people involved in evaluation I see already. That's really good to see. So hopefully you're gonna see, and I'm sure you will have lots of useful stuff to take away from this session. So thanks very much, everyone. It's nice to meet you all, and thanks for coming. So we're going to start off with our first Menti now. A nice broad question for you. So this is the question: what does an effective evaluation network look like to you? So all you do is pop in www.menti.com into your browser and it'll ask you to put in this code, and then this question will come up on your screen. You'll get to put in a few words, and we're just asking you to think about what an effective evaluation looks like or does for you. So if you can just stick a couple of words in there so we can get a sense of what people would like to see from a network, that'd be really helpful, and I can show the results up on screen. If you've got any problems accessing that Menti, just do let me know in the chat box or call out into the session. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. So collaborative coming up a lot, sharing knowledge, independent, yes, across all areas. agile. Just give it another 30 seconds or so. Hopefully you can see your response in there and then see what other people are coming up with as well, if anything appeals to you that's coming up from other places. So thinking about methods as well, knowledge sharing, good communication. That's brilliant. Thank you. So that's really helpful. That just gives us a sense of the kind of network that you would want to be a part of, or perhaps already are a part of, and we can draw upon that stuff later in the session as well. So thanks very much for taking part in that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Paul, do you want to bring back up the presentation? Thank you very much. So thanks so very much. Do stay logged into that Menti, because we'll be using that same code throughout. For now, though, I'm going to pass over to Paul.
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. And good to see so many people here and such varied participants. I've been thinking of various jokes I could make about the festival and being on the main stage and stuff, but I couldn't think of anything that was appropriate. I'd apologise in advance if you hear a small dog going mental. That will be because someone knocks at the door, the post person or whomever, but I shall try and mute quickly if that happens. So I'm not going to spend ages on, on what evaluation is and why it's important, because I'm assuming that those of you here, most people here, are involved in evaluation, or at least here because you think it is important. But I did just want to begin just with a little introduction, just to sort of confirm we're all on the same page, perhaps, or to show you where we're coming from in our thinking about evaluation. Because, you know, too often, or without evaluation, without looking at what's happening, and without thinking about evaluation from the outset, you often get this approach to a program intervention. It's all very complicated, and something's going to happen that's just no one really understands, but we all think it's going to work. And evaluation is about understanding, you know, does that miracle occur? And ideally, what we would do is work from the outset of an intervention to really unpack that, so that we've got a clear idea of actually the detail of really what is intended. And many of you, I hope, will be familiar with logic models and theories of change, and that's the approach that we use there, and that we would always promote as addressing that. So, I mean, it's interesting to see the word cloud, because, of course, the evaluation network shares some of the characteristics of evaluation in and of itself, because it's about learning, and you know, evaluation is a systematic approach to establishing whether, why, or how something's working or not, and that's always important. You know, evaluation is about finger pointing, about auditing, about blame. It's about understanding and learning, and whether that's about a program, an intervention, innovation of at any scale. And evaluation should always look at both delivery and the effect of the evaluation. Of the intervention, sorry. So, you know, was it delivered according to the plan, that miracle happening, and has it achieved its outcomes, of course, and is it cost effective, and what effects does it have on all the people involved? Evaluation is a sort of a discipline, of course, in and of itself, but it's also an essential part of quality improvement, and it's about ensuring we make the best use of resources. It's about making sure we make the best decisions to improve outcomes, and that is all what the decision support centre and decision support units network is all about, and our evaluation network as part of that, about promoting good evaluation practice across our region. And one of the things that we're interested in today is how can we link up what we're doing more broadly outside of our patch. We would always promote a mixed method approach, so we're getting that quantitative evidence of outcomes, as well as the qualitative understanding of what works and why. So that's our starting point. And later in the session, I'm going to be presenting an evaluation guide that we've written, which is hot off the press today, which sets some of these things out in more detail. So the Decision Support Centre and the way in which we support evaluation across the Decision Support Unit network. So the DSC that's the central hub for coordinating and supporting the units across the Midlands. And if you've been to any of the other sessions as part of the festival, then you'll be familiar with this. Each system in our region is developing a decision support unit, and the centre is there to provide training and support to help raise and maintain a high standard of analytical capability across the region. So the network, the evaluation network, is about bringing people together from across the units who are interested in evaluation. And one of the reasons why she talked about system quality improvement in the previous slide was that, unlike some of our work with analysts, there aren't many people who, apart from me, who've got evaluation in their job title. And so there's a very broad spectrum of people who evaluation can, or we perhaps would say should, touch on, but it's not always seen as everyone's business. But it really is should be part of people's mainstream way of working. So what we're doing in the network is trying to provide a forum to develop joint projects. So one of the ideas behind the network, the DSU network, is that we can bring capacity and capability together and people can collaborate. So projects which might be too big for one group of people to do by themselves, but there's a common interest across the region. Sharing findings, so what's coming out of evaluations and what people are finding and what does that mean for them, and sharing resources, so very practical things like the guide, which I'm going to be talking about, but also things such as templates or model documents, ITTs, topic guides, whatever it might be, that can help support effective evaluation. And we are already making links with other networks to both bring in what is coming out of those networks into our own, to help facilitate sharing that learning and that collaboration, and some things that were in the word cloud, but also to feed out from what we're finding out because of course this is just the beginning of this endeavour, back into those networks. So to fit with our ethos and our mission, really, to share. We're not interested in doing things that are proprietary or keeping things sort of exclusive within the network or within any of the organisations. It's all about sharing for everyone's learning, because of course many of the things which any individual area is interested in, are usually of course of interest much more widely. So at the moment, of course, there's lots of things going on around video consultations and things that are coming out of COVID, and they're not unique to any one area. So a couple of the key networks that we've already linked in with is the Beneficial Changes Network, NHS England and Improvement, and that is all around, that's focused on learning from the COVID response and innovations. It's quite an active community. There's a number of lunch and learn meetings already being held, and lots of people from across the health and care system sharing what they're doing, sharing case studies and so on. And we're very keen to play our part there, and also, of course, in a two-way, bring it into our network. And there's a new NHS England and Improvement evaluation community of practice. That is also just beginning, but it's not sort of COVID specific like the Beneficial Changes, and that's really trying to bring together people from across all of the NHS, nationally, regionally, locally, wherever, who've got an interest in evaluation, to share what's happening. In terms of a bit more specific of some of the work which we've been doing and the way in which we think, in which we intend to work with our region, we've got a sort of a broad typology, if you like, of ways in which we plan to support the decision support units. So one is that, as I was talking about just earlier, supporting DSUs to come together to do some work. So either to support one group individually or to support them together, and with the centre providing training and resources as required. And that's really sort of a bespoke, flexible offer. So it could be anything from helping with developing a survey, for example, or quality assurance of final output, so to give that independent critical view. Another one could be where a system wants to commission a external evaluation, so we can help with that process, helping people think about what it is they need, what they're likely to get for their money, what a good commissioning process is, a good invitation to tender, and all that sort of stuff, and supporting that. And that includes actually the strategy unit who are able to provide those external evaluations, but that's not, wouldn't necessarily be someone's preferred way of working. And then there's a blended approach, which is where we work with the decision support unit together on the evaluation, providing training and resources, where we can conduct strands of data collection and analysis. And when I say we, that's through the capacity of the strategy unit, who run the decision support centre, and where I also lead evaluation services. So I've got a couple of examples here of work which is just completing at the moment with STPs in our region. So the first one in Hereford and Worcestershire, we started to work quite early in April, actually, thinking about how we could help them with the learning from the COVID response. And what we've done there is trained CCG staff to conduct qualitative interviews, quite a big training program with a number of staff. And then we had fortnightly reflective learning sessions, and they were about reflecting on the practice of the interviews. It's a sort of the functional part of it, how it was going, were people able to answer the questions, or those sorts of things, and then also what was coming out of those interviews. So to use that to inform the ongoing interview process, so key issues that are emerging, or new things that had perhaps been unforeseen, and also to inform rapid cycle reporting. So every 2 weeks we were providing headline findings into the CCG for ongoing learning, and then we provided a fuller independent analysis of that. And all of the rapid cycle reports are available on the strategy unit website, and the fuller report, which is just going through sign off at the moment, that will be available as well. And that's an in-depth from about 80 qualitative interviews across the system, including about 10 with patient representatives. We've also been supporting the Black Country and West Birmingham STP, and Lucy Heath from there is with us today, I saw. That was a different approach. Again, we've had qualitative research, but in this instance, the strategy unit conducted those interviews. We also then offered, there was a whole range of stuff already going on across the system at various trusts and things, so we had a sort of bespoke support offer to them. So we helped, again, thinking about surveys, we provided different approaches to analysing data from staff engagement events, framework analysis, guidance, and all sorts of different things to people. And then we're doing a synthesis of all of that material. So we're looking at a whole range of different reports that have come out of trusts and things, as well as the qualitative research that we're doing. So those weren't DSC projects, they were strategy unit projects, but we think that there's things in there, that way of working, that we think the centre can support our region. So we're going now to another quick question.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Paul. So this question builds on the one that we just brought in, and also the stuff that Paul's just been talking about. So what we want to know is what you would like from an evaluation network. We appreciate some of the things you've just mentioned, and we've tried to collate those into the next Menti. So if you go to that code again, you should see a new question come up. There we go. People are already in. And if there's other stuff that we've missed in here, then please do feel free to stick it in the chat box, and we can talk about that and include that as well. Right, you can see people are getting in there. Let me share my screen and we can see the results coming in. Okay, so lots of people thinking about the tools and guidance. That's great, because that's a big chunk of what we're going to be talking about today in terms of our own evaluation guide. Sharing learning, very important as well, lots of support for that. And that's a big part of the network's offer. Support advice to design local evaluation as well. So some of the stuff that Paul's just been talking about in terms of Herefordshire and Worcestershire and the Black Country. So I'll just give it another minute just through anyone else who wants to come in on this. That's great. Okay, so a lot of those feel like things that Paul was just talking about in terms of the DSU network evaluation offer. Like I say, if there's anything that people want to add that they don't feel is included on there, then please do stick it on the chat box and we'll cover that later on. But again, that's really useful feedback, so thank you for that. I think we're going to move on to the next question. Okay, Paul, do you want to bring back up your slides? Thank you. And there's a question from Judy here, well, a statement from Judy just about struggling to convince our CCG to invest in resource to do evaluations. It'd be interesting to know if that's also a point that others would bring upon as well. You know, is getting resource for evaluation a struggle in your system? That'd be interesting to get the group's views on. So you now should be able to go to the next question, which is how would you most likely engage with a network? So again, you should see that new question come up on screen. Because this is often been the challenge with networks. You know, what's the right amount of interaction amongst it, and what's the best way to do that. So have a look at that question as well. We've got some responses coming in. Let me share those. So support for virtual meetings, it looks like is quite strong, but support for the others as well. Any other ideas are really appreciated and really valued in terms of any other ways in which maybe you've engaged in a network and found that really good. These are just the ones that we could think of. But it seems that you know, the shift to virtual working has actually been quite a positive for building networks, taking off some of that, I suppose, pressure around, you know, people travelling and meeting face to face to discuss issues. So again, that's really helpful. So it seems that support for virtual meetings is quite there. I mean, a sense of regularity of that would be useful as well. You know, sort of monthly stuff, 6 monthly stuff, obviously it depends, or when there's something important to say. Any useful feedback on that in the chat box would be very helpful as well. And a comment for Lucy on one-to-one introductions with network members as well. That's a really good point, Lucy, thank you. Okay, so that's it for the mentees for now. So Paul, do you want to take back control, and then we'll move into the next section?
Thank you. It's really interesting reading both what was in the chat box and the comments there on the Menti. What I'm going to present now is I'm going to give an introduction to the evaluation guide which we've produced for the Decision Support Centre and our network. But it's yes, we've written it for the network, but it's available to anyone. And that addresses some of the things which are in the Menti in terms of thinking about evaluation standards, resources, sharing tools and those things. It doesn't address these comments and discussion which is going on at the moment in the chat box in terms of convincing people about the value of evaluation. that is something which the decision support centre and the decision support units are all about. It's about a commitment to evidence base and developing an evidence base, making evidence-based decisions, and basing those decisions on the best evidence, and supporting the development of capacity across the region to provide that evidence and evaluation as one part of that. So that's part of our wider endeavour, and the commitment of our STPs in our region to establish a DSU, to support the DSC, and to develop the network, I think is testament to that. But we're in the foothills of it, so I guess time will tell. Talking and it's really great to see so much discussion, and hopefully that we've planned to have time for some discussion at the end, so I should try not to witch on for too long. So the evaluation guide, it's a guide to principles and practice. So I saw something in there about standards. Originally we were thinking about how we could promote standards in evaluation, but actually when you start to go down that road, some techniques lend themselves to standardization, but some are more about matters of judgment. So many of you will be familiar with quantitative approaches, and where you've got, there's a gold standard, which is randomized control trial, and then you're basically working your way down there. If you take that hierarchical approach, you always get qualitative at the bottom, because it's anecdotal and all of that sort of stuff. And we wanted to avoid that. So yes, there is a hierarchy in those quantitative approaches, but overall in evaluation, what we're suggesting is thinking about principles and practice that if you follow them, then you will develop a high standard, a high quality evaluation, because there's judgments to be made about the amount of resources that you've got, about who you're working with, what's the scale of the thing which you're looking at. A very small scale evaluation of a very innovative pilot that's more in a sort of a proof of concept stage, with perhaps a highly marginalized group who are often missed out by services, is not going to be appropriate for for some of those experimental techniques. And you can't put a number on, for example, how many participants you should speak to. There may only be a small number of people from a minority group accessing the service, and if you only speak to 2 of them, that doesn't mean that you haven't got good data. It could actually be incredibly valuable data, because this is a group of people that are not usually engaged either in services or in research and evaluation. So that's the sort of so that's the approach that we've taken. We've written it in an accessible style, we think. So bits of it are quite technical, but the idea is that it should explain the basics, and what we're not trying to write the Bible of evaluation. What we're trying to do is provide something which gives a good understanding and overview, and then we're signposting to other resources that are out there, because there's lots of stuff out there, and what we want to do is develop it over time. So we'd like people who use the guide to let us know of additional resources that they think should be included in it, and as the DSU network starts to do evaluations and starts to produce outputs, then we'll be able to link to them in the guide, so that people can as case studies of good examples or whatever. The guide takes you through all aspects of developing, designing and delivering an evaluation, and the intention there is that it can be used as a guide for you in-house for the whole thing, or just for bits of evaluation, or if people are thinking about commissioning evaluation, then what things might they expect to go in there. And I'm pleased to see some interesting comments in the chat box about some of the things I've been saying. So I won't dwell on this, but this is broadly these are the key bits that are in the evaluation guide, and I'm going to show some examples of the content. So we're starting off with what is evaluation, why it's important, and the considerations that go into developing evaluation design, who should be involved in the evaluation. So that's both who should be involved in the design of the evaluation, and then also who's going to be involved as participants, providing data, whether that's providing access to data about what's being delivered, or whether it's participants in the evaluation, the stakeholders. Think about the governance arrangements that's needed. So at a very basic level, you know, what's a good project management structure for an evaluation, but also what a steering group should look like, what the roles and functions of those are. Information governance, of course, some of those things. Ethical issues, so how to ensure that you're taking an ethical approach. That's both in terms of your participants, but also people who are involved in the research in delivering the evaluation as well. Participatory approaches, co-production, where it's a bit of a bugbear of mine, is not to claim to do co-production, not to aim to do co-production all the time. It's not always appropriate to do co-production. You don't have to do co-production to have meaningful participation. So that's one of the things which we're talking about there. What's important is that when you involve people, you do it in a meaningful way. It's not tokenistic, and you don't claim to be doing co-production if you're not. And if you are going to do co-production, to do it properly, and that takes investment and resources. The big one for everyone is, you know, how much is it going to cost, and how to think about that, and what the trade-offs might be between what you would like to do in an ideal world and what you've got resources for, and how you can make some decisions around that. And then there's sort of substantive areas around how guidance to qualitative research. So an introduction to interviews, focus groups, those sorts of things. Quantitative research, then we tried not to make it too technical, but sort of by its nature, bits of it are. So introductions to the strengths and weaknesses of different methods, interrupted time series analysis and so on, and when it might be best used, and then an introduction to those sort of key analytical methods in quantitative research. Then a section on how to do a survey, because those of you who are involved in research and evaluation will know that surveys aren't easy. And I think that's the first line we've got in that section. People often think, oh, let's do a survey, but they're often done badly. Then a section on how to report findings, because of course we want evaluation to make a difference. So we need to make our findings accessible, and ways in which you can do that. Then the final section on further resources and links into the DSC, and then a couple at the moment, just a couple of supporting resources. So we've got a model topic guide and example participant information sheet, which explains to participant what the evaluation is all about and seeks informed consent. So some of the things which we've talked about in the guide. And there's a link there which you can all download. So this is just to give you a sense of the content. So you can see the menu bar down the left-hand side. You can click on that, and it takes you to those sections, and the arrows left and right take you through. And you'll see on some of these screenshots which I've created, there's hyperlinks through. So this is, you know, helping people think about what the purpose is of the evaluation, because that informs further decisions. And you'll see there, you know, we're saying the best evaluations are both formative and summative, and that's important for us to promote. Is a section where we're talking about co-production and participatory approaches, which I was just mentioning about there. And you can see there's a couple of hyperlinks to further resources. This is a section on part of the section on good governance. You see there we've included a link to the Magenta book. Some of you might be familiar with the Magenta book. Sorry, it's the Government Guide to Evaluation. It's just been rewritten, and it's in quite an accessible style actually. But we're not trying to mimic that. It's got more detail in than we're providing, and we've tried to signpost to the relevant bits of it rather than just say see the Magenta book, because it's quite a tome. This is a section within the section on about qualitative research. We've got a particular section on working during COVID restrictions, because of course there's limitations on face-to-face work. We've also got a section on evaluating digital health, which some of you might be interested in. This is an overview of the part of the quantitative evaluation method section. So this is the sort of introductory section. So you'll see you can click on each of these petals. They look a bit like guitar plectrums, don't they? Which I suppose is appropriate for a festival. So they're the petals from the DSC logo. So you'll see there just a very quick summary of the pros and cons and so on for each method. Oh, there's a slide's gone missing. Well, I was going to show you a slide of more detailed what the interrupted time series part of that section, which gives you a bit more detail, looks like, to give you a sense of how we've tried to balance the amount of technical detail whilst sort of trying to keep it accessible. But in our super polished editing, we appear to have dropped a slide, David. So I'm not going to say any more about that. I can see all the discussion in the chat box, which I'm now going to have a look at, because I'm going to pass over to David for our next mentee.
Thanks, Paul. And the final mentee, you'll be, for those of you who hate this kind of thing, will be pleased to know, or disappointed if you love this thing. We've already got one person very keen who has got in there, and we're asking if you're going to use this guide to support evaluation activity in your system. It's a yes, no, not sure question. And we're going to ask for some feedback on it next. So it'll be really good to think about, if yes, then how could you use it? How could you share it? If you're not sure, what are the things that you need to know, or what other support might you need from us to help you to use it? And if no, but we haven't got any no's so far, I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what's coming in. So hopefully you can see that now. So I'll give it a few minutes. So it's mostly yeses, a few not sures. So in response to you, Rachel, yes, anyone can access it. It's available openly via the link that Paul shared, and when we share the video from this session, you'll be able to see that as well. Paul, just while these are coming in, we had a statement from Ellie earlier. I just thought it'd be interesting to get your views on. Ellie talked about the potential tensions between growing your own highly skilled staff and commissioning external organisations to carry out evaluations, and it seems difficult to strike the right balance. Did you have any response or comments to that from Ellie?
Well, no, I mean, I think that it is difficult to strike the right balance. It takes a commitment to, so you would need to grow a substantial staff for some of the larger things you might want to do, but a small, highly skilled team, could cover quite a lot of evaluation needs. I suppose what would need to happen around that would be, and this is one of the things with the DSUs, is making sure that there's that they're able to be independent and provide independent analysis, and they're not pressured to provide good news stories. So one of the things about commissioning external evaluation is should be guaranteed as independent. Those of us who do evaluations know clients can lean on you, which we resist. So, certainly growing your own would be, should be a more cost-effective use of resources, because you're keeping that expertise, you're developing that expertise in-house, and that's one of the things that we're trying to support. What's important then is, like we're saying, the sort of governance around that, and I suppose how you might ensure that. It's one of the things around our network is that the Decision Support Centre can provide that independent quality assurance, for example, of people's work. You know, I think we have to take a realistic approach to what I'm trying to say. I'm trying not to be pessimistic and say that, you know, there's always pressure on people to promote good news, because it's not the case. You know, I'm not suggesting that, but of course there are times when things are politically, with the small or big P, sensitive, and people might feel under pressure. So I guess what's important is ensuring that. I don't know what else can say to that, really. I mean, certainly one of the ambitions of our work is to grow internal capacity and to support that, so that people don't need to spend money on external consultants or external expertise. But sometimes something is, you know, would just be of a scale where you would need something externally, and that's part of the thinking behind our sort of 3-model approach. That sometimes you might need a blended approach, but that would mean that we would be working with those teams to really build capacity. And not just take all the work out externally.
Cool.
That answers your question.
So really important to where expertise is brought in, that it's brought in to also enhance existing skills rather than just do a job and walk away, that kind of thing. You know, that's part of that blended approach, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Yeah.
Thank you. So we've got some other comments coming into the box. A lot of support for the guide, which is great, and intentions to use it. I've put the link for it into the chat box. It'd be great to keep gathering feedback as we come in. So if you do get a chance to have a look at it, if not in this session, then outside, you know, we do welcome feedback on it. So you've got our contact addresses. Please use those in. But we wanted to use the end of the session to think about next steps. So we're obviously starting an evaluation network in the Midlands, and we wanted to, you know, for those of you who are within the Midlands, we wanted to know from you what we can do to help you participate in this. You know, what kind of support or what kind of information do you need from us to, I suppose, to satisfy yourselves that it's a network that's worth joining. And then also, we're really keen to, you know, Paul mentioned a few other evaluation networks nationally that are already in train. You know, we want to engage with other networks around evaluation and build, build a network of networks, if you like. So if you're already involved in a network from outside the Midlands, I've seen a question in there about someone asking about any networks in London that people might be aware of, then please do pop them in the chat box, or I think we'll probably open the floor up if people want to speak out into the room now. That's absolutely fine as well. We only ask people to go on mute so the screen doesn't move away from the presenters, but the presenting bit's done. So if you do want to comment into the room as well, then please do. But anyone got any views there on what we can do to help you support you to participate in the network, or link us in with other networks around evaluation? No, going to be not getting a huge amount of comments in here on this one at the moment. I mean, we're really keen, you know, if you do know about other networks, to keep us noted on them. I know there are some other comments coming through on some of the stuff that Paul's presented on, but we'd also like you to think about what you can do to support the network. You know, what role could you play in helping to network evaluation? We've got lots of people in the room who do have evaluation in the job title, and that's really good to see. What do you do at the moment to support networks, if that's part of your role? Yep, thanks, Joe. Sharing examples of the works we carried out, that's really important and a fundamental part of our network. Is that easy to do, Joe? Do you have an established forum for doing that, or is that something that you'd like to see more of? It's got your own website. So what's the website, Joe? Would you want to share that? Is that an open website?
I was just thinking it's really hard just going through the chat, and it's all right just to take the microphone off.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, if you're more comfortable this way, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Hertfordshire, so I suppose that would consider us to be outside of the Midlands. I mean, it's something that we've been working on in Hertfordshire for sort of a few years now. So we've set up a website, which is Hearts Health Evidence, which we've got an evaluation section on. It still needs more work on it. Started to put our own evaluation reports that we've run in-house, and started to put some guidance up there about carrying out evaluation, but I can certainly put the link into the chat box so that everyone can have a look. It's certainly again a work in progress. We are working on building up our own internal evaluation team. It's something I'm particularly passionate about doing. We've got about, there's 6 of us at the moment, and we're hoping to expand that in the future too. So we're based in public health, but we do work across the council. Some areas are easier to engage than others, so that there are certain areas of the council that we're having difficulty getting into and convincing them the importance of it. It is a work in progress, and I'm quite happy to speak to people and share experiences if they're interested.
Thanks, Joe. That's really useful, and we'd be very keen to link in with that as well. I mean, it's not a closed shop at all. The Midlands Network, we, like I say, we want to be outward facing and connecting in with other work as well. So we're trying to find an effective way of sharing that. Hayden, you've mentioned that you've got an evaluation group in Gloucestershire, and you've shared that guide. Is this a new resource for you that you can build upon? I mean, how do you have you got something similar that you've used previously? Do you mind coming in on that?
No, not at all. I think we've got our own tools, but I think this one will really enhance the work that we've done. I think our tools are sort of locally based, but using best practice. But I've just shared this with the group just this morning now, and I've already had some good feedback. So I think it's going to be a positive step forward for us to do the evaluation.
Thanks, Aidan. That's really helpful feedback. And Judy, you've mentioned that you'd like to share your experience. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's just, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm having terrible trouble with my computer this morning. I think it's too long to type and it gets confusing. I think we struggle with the fact that our CCG, so we come from a background of being a research development department. So we are mostly about developing research applications. And what we were frustrated with was that all the stuff we were doing with research, we couldn't see any of it getting into practice. And so we started offering some sort of staff time to do evaluations, and they would buy little bits out, but trying to convince them to invest in a couple of posts that would actually carry this on for us and for the CCG long term has been excruciatingly slow. And so I'm going to give it one more go before I retire, because I'm determined to leave something behind when I go. And we claim on our website that we invest 1.6 billion in healthcare for Norfolk and Waveney. And I would be asking them for some 0.01% to set up an evidence and evaluation hub for them. And it's really complicated to convince them that this is a good idea. So I'm really hoping that I and my team, who are, we can't all come to all the talks, but I think we're trying to get everybody to one of them, is going to take some of this back and say, look, here are models where they're doing this in a collaborative fashion across regions, and can't we do that here? Because it would actually be worth the investment, I think. And I just thought that was too much to sort of sit and type out, and would be very tedious. So thanks.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Judy. And anyone else have similar experiences that, or frustrations that they want to share with the group, or maybe practical steps for overcoming any of those things that could support Judy? If you want to come in, then please do. If you do want to come in, just pop a note in the chat box asking if you can if you can have your say, and we can nod you in. Just
I was just going to come in, David. I mean, I put it in the chat box. I know everyone's not looking at that, but it's just reflecting on some of the things which people said, and I think I touched on it earlier at the beginning of my presentation. But I think that, you know, the fact that this network has been established with the DSC Support Centre as a hub to coordinate, support, as an investment in analytical, as an investment in evidence-based decision making, whether that's evaluation, or there's another area of the DSC which is about it's an evidence library, or our work with analysts, and there's a huge analysts network, and I saw Ellie's comments in the chat box, which, you know, the evaluation network is very much at the moment the poorer relation, although we're trying to change that, bringing more people in, you know, and it's supported by NHS EI in the Midlands. You know, it shows a huge, you know, that commitment is fantastic, and in theory it should help address some of the things which have been touched on in terms of, you know, a reticence to learn from things, to invest in evaluation, to not hear about failure. You know, some of the things which have been mentioned, having to sort of convince people higher up about the value, about the importance of taking evidence-based approach. All that stuff is sort of basically hardwired into the network. Now, you know, of course, the proof will be in the pudding about how that plays out over time. But certainly, you know, it's a fantastic commitment that addresses a lot of those potential pitfalls and problems and issues that people face. You know, we hope, actually what we'd like is this model to provide, or what we're doing here, to be a model which other regions can pick up. But of course that all takes investment from those regions and all of that. So, you know, perhaps we're in I think we are in a privileged position now in this region, and it'll be for all of us who are involved in it to make it a success and to make it deliver on its promise, including the very senior people that, to be fair to them, you know, have put money into the pot to make this happen. So it would be, you know, I'm naturally sort of a cynic, I'll be honest with you, but you know, I think we have to put that to one side and see this for what it is and how positive it is, and assume that people who have put money in the pot are, you know, will be looking to see what they're getting for that money, and that will be high quality analysis and evidence base for their decision making. And this network is just one part of that to feed out from it. You know, these are all the things that are going on in the network, and out to anyone that's interested, and also to bring into it. So all the stuff that's going on in the other networks which have been mentioned, or, you know, everything from links with other networks to, you know, our report that's published somewhere that we can host on our evidence library.
Thank you, Paul. We've just got a couple of minutes left, so we're just thinking about next steps. I mean, two of the things that we're very interested in, and that's why we're very keen for people to be posting other examples of networks that we can link into, because, like I said, we do want to be outward facing, so we want to find a way to, you know, share our network model, and also, you know, things like the guide, you know, with other networks as well. But then also internally, we'd love to get your feedback on the guide that's been presented today. So, like I said, that's been shared in the chat box, and you'll be able to get it from the video of this recording as well. And we'd be really keen to get your comments and feedback on that. Any views on if or how you've used it, or will or intend to use it, and please do share with your own networks as well. You know, we want it to be a resource that's used as much as possible. Rachel, just got a question.
And let us know any comments.
Yeah.
You know, any resources, you know, and I mean, I hope there's no typos left in it, but even that, but please, you know, any and all comments and feedback, ways you think it could be improved, things you'd like to see in the next iteration of it. You know, really interested. I mean, I'm really pleased people think it's good, but, you know, when you read it, you might, some of that might be tempered.
And Rachel, just in response to your question, the recording will be made available next week, early next week, and you can share the guide and that at your will as soon as that's released, and you'll be notified when it is. So before we finish off, Paul or any of the group at all, and I'm really pleased that so many of you have got involved in this session. It's been really been a really positive session, I think. Any other comments or questions that you'd like to put to other members in this session or to Paul?
Very happy for anyone to get in touch with me outside of the session.
Great.
My email's on the final slide, but you can find it on the DSU Sports Centre website.
Great, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Hayden. Yeah, do please feedback on the session as well as the guide. You know, it's really good to get your thoughts on how these things have been run and any improvements we can make. We're, I think, like all of us, we're all learning how to operate virtually and share learning in this way. So just before we finish, can we just have the last slide? Just a little note on what's coming up next for those of you interested in evaluation. We've got a session tomorrow on our network of analysts that has been operating for the last 3 or 4 months. That's been led by our chief analyst, Stephen Wyatt, and that's been, as Paul mentioned earlier, a very successful network. And then on Friday, we're having a panel discussion with some experts, including from Public Health England and others, on thinking about what's next for decision support units and this way of working. That promises to be really interesting. And finally, Paul mentioned earlier the work that we've done with Herefordshire and Worcestershire around digital transformation in primary care and evaluating that. Paul will be leading a more detailed session on that for those of you who are interested in the detail. And that's next Tuesday from 2 till 3. So please do come to that one as well if that's of interest. But for now, though, we're going to thank everyone very much for coming, and thanks to Paul for an interesting session and for everyone for getting involved. Paul's contact details are on the last slide, and we'll send those round. But thank you very much for your contributions, and we'll say goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone.